Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Technology Tools of the Future. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. This is the fifth program of five. Welcome to all of our professional licensed engineers and land surveyors. For those of you who are not familiar with me, my name is Bernadette Vidoro. I am a certified professional speaker and I have a certification in business ethics. I have been working with engineers and scientists for the last 6 years, and I have been teaching ethics for many, many years with federal employees and other government agency employees as well. I have clients across the nation and worldwide, and I'm happy to be presenting our program today, which is Technology Tools for the Future. I'd like for you to think about this slide, and some of you may remember this. This is a picture from 2001, Space Odyssey, and we're going to be talking about different aspects of engineering and land surveying that have to do with the cognitive ability, healthcare delivery systems, human information, engineering, construction, surveying, and design, and what impact the technology tools that we have today and the tools that are evolving for tomorrow will have upon you, your practice, and the ethics by which you do business and conduct business. So I'd like for you to look at this graphic if you can see it, and it's that idea, that which you can imagine, is only a matter of time before it becomes a real probability in the real world. And so here's a listing of different kinds of technologies that were talked about in movies, sci-fi movies in the past. And so if you look at the first one, it was the video telephone in 1926 in the movie Metropolitan. And here it is in Skype became the way that you could actually have a video telephone conversation in 2009. So this graphic again correlates with what was imagined in these sci-fi movies and then the reality and the few years that it took for it to evolve into that particular technology. Another example of that was cloning. So in 1993 in Jurassic Park, there was discussion of animal cloning, and it was in 1996, 3 years later, that Dolly the sheep was the first cloned animal. Just going to look at a few of these because I really want to emphasize the importance of how we begin to dream and see things in a sci-fi manner, and then it's only a matter of time before these technologies evolve into reality. So airport scanners in one of my favorite sci-fi movies, Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was in 1990, and we know in 2009 airports then had airport scanners, full-body scanners that we see today. And then finally, in 1977, the Death Star laser we saw in the Star Wars series became a reality in 1998 when we had the first lasers. Many of you have seen many of these, and again, we think of them as far-fetched fantasy, but the reality is that many of these things occur within just a short matter of time. I'd like to emphasize in today's program that the future is now. Never before in the history of our human existence on Earth has technology evolved as quickly as it is today. Things that we can only imagine are happening tomorrow or this very day. So I'd like for you to recognize what's driving so much of this technology. We have smartphones, we have the internet, and whether people like it or not, we have globalization. We saw that with the meltdown of the financial industry in 2008. It affected nations from as far as Iceland to Greece to the United States. We're all interconnected in ways that we didn't recognize before. And today we begin to see that. And with auto language translate, the barriers that existed between human beings is now diminishing greatly as people are able to communicate and better understand one another. So what we are going to focus on in the next 55 minutes or so, I want to zoom in particularly to these areas. And there's so many places that we could go with technology tools of the future. But I think for our purpose, if we can look at some of the items that will be impacting us in the near future, it will be helpful for you to evaluate your practices and the ethical implications that these technologies bring to us. We're going to be talking about transportation, drones, surveying, nanotechnology, 3D printing, construction, healthcare, and all of their impact on our quality of life as projected in the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. What we see and read about every day are self-driving cars. I can't wait to have a self-driving car. It's probably my least favorite thing to do. And my husband and my daughters will both tell you that we can't all be great at everything. And driving, I'm not a fond proponent of driving. But we know that by 2020, vehicles will be self-driving, autonomous, electric, and connected. So that means that you will get in as a passenger, basically input your destination, and be connected to the World Wide Web by some mechanism so that you can do other things with your time. What self-driving cars will do is that they will turn drivers into passengers, and they will allow people to use commuting time to work, to be entertained, to rest, or to stay connected to the rest of the world. You can get back on your email, send messages to people, get on your computer, do some work, have a chat with your family member or friend, colleague. You can have a auto conference meeting. There are a lot of different things that we can do with our time instead of worrying about driving and traffic. Would you, each of you that are out there watching our program today, enjoy riding in a self-driving car? Now, maybe it's a gender thing that I don't like to drive. I don't know. My youngest daughter is here. We were talking, and she said, oh, no, Mother, I don't want to be in a self-driving car. I want to have control. So let me ask you the question. For those of you that answered no, why? What would you be worried about? Loss of control, fear of the unknown, or other? The industry is moving towards these self-driving cars. And here are some of the things that they will do for you. Automated retrieval. So what industry experts say is that in the not too distant future, you won't have a need for a garage, at least for the purpose of storing a vehicle, because there'll be fleets of vehicles stored, and you will simply call up an app from your cell phone that will bring a car to you at a designated time. Imagine if you're in some place freezing cold like Minnesota, or some place that is so hot like Arizona, the ability to have an automated car delivered to your doorstep that has been heated or cooled to a perfect temperature for you. The door opens and you climb in. These cars will have collision avoiding technology so that you don't crash into another vehicle, object detection so that you can know if you're getting close to an object, automated parking, infotainment options. Wow, that's a new word for us, which means that you have the ability to download the latest movie, to be able to watch something that perhaps you have been wanting to watch on television that you pre-recorded, other kinds of things that you would be able to do. Geolocating, so that you would actually see on Google Maps where it is that you are going. If you are going to attend a conference or a wedding or a banquet, you can actually see what it looks like before you arrive. Audiovisual information about other things that you are working on, web conferencing, social networking, and we're going to talk about platooning in just a moment. But before we go there, I'd like to ask you, how many features does your vehicle have? I know I bought a new car last year and it has collision avoidance. My car beeps a certain way and it will actually slam on the brakes if it's worried that I might hit something that looks like a moving object. It beeps a certain way if it looks like I might hit the gate as I back out my driveway, and a different sounding beep if it's a person walking by. It has an automated parking function that I can put in and it will parallel park for me. And it has geolocating, so it can locate places that I want to go to. So when I talk about the future being here today, we are talking about things that are already being programmed into our cars. And so often we think that we would be afraid of something, but the evolution moves in a fashion that by the time it actually arrives, we're fairly comfortable with it, especially when we can be assured of the safety mechanisms that are built into these vehicles. One of the biggest areas in engineering that we'll be looking at is platooning. So what that means is it means that there will be technology integrated into every moving vehicle so that vehicles can move safely on our highways. Imagine what that's going to do for our highways. I imagine also that it might prevent people from speeding or going too slow. If every vehicle is calibrated to go at a certain pace and get you to a destination at a certain time, it will allow for free flowing and for detours if there's problems in the highways that have occurred unexpectedly, because there will always be the need for human interaction at all levels of technology. At least that's my hope at this point in time. So some of the self-driving cars that are actually being rolled out right now in Shanghai are these cute little things. They're called the GM NV, which is the Magic vehicle, and the other one is called the Pride. There's actually 3 models that are being rolled out in Shanghai. We know the problems in China of trying to drive any place with all of the traffic. And so these are green electric kinds of vehicles that get their electricity using solar power and other kinds of technology. If we go to Switzerland, we can see that right now in Switzerland, the first commercial vehicles are being rolled out for individuals in this community of Sion, Switzerland. They're autonomous vehicles, which means they have no driver. They stop at certain places and they take people to their designated places that they want to be as they get in. In Washington, D.C. right now, we have a clean energy electric vehicle that carries up to 12 people, and it is equipped with the most advanced vehicle technology. There is a person that rides in there, and it's really mostly for our benefit so that we don't feel worried about the items that we talked about earlier in the program, the fear of a collision, the fear of loss of control. So there's someone in there, but it's mostly to allow the new passengers that they are rolling out this promo project with to feel comfortable and to share with them the benefits of this kind of a vehicle within Washington, D.C. Experts tell us that it is only a matter of time before we have autonomous vehicles traveling cross-country with very little input from human beings. The only thing we will be saying is where we want to go, when we want to get there, and how we want to be distracted or entertained during our journey. So very interesting things that we'll be looking at in the very near future. So what we know about drones, specifically for engineering and surveying, is that drones offer a very good product at cost-effective rates in comparison to conventional methods. Now, if you hear of the acronym UAV, it stands for Unmanned Aerial Vehicle. UAS is unmanned aerial system, and they are used often one or the other, but they mean basically the same thing. Many of our colleagues to the north of us, the Canadians, refer to them as UAS. One of the benefits of using drones in a surveying practice is that it emphasizes safety first. You can avoid sending personnel into situations that can be hazardous, and you can remotely collect data in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you had to actually send people in. Drones allow surveying in difficult and inaccessible places such as underground, in forests, and underwater. And quotes from surveyors and engineers who are using drones say that mapping is quicker and more complete than ground surveying methods. The turnaround time is incredibly faster. Some of the other things that you can do with drones is that you're able to identify problem areas with greater accuracy. You can send a drone into a construction site, a bridge, to see if there are, if all of the seams have been put together correctly, if there's any concrete that is cracking, if there are any deficiencies in the project. You're able to identify those and spend much more time with a drone emphasizing its camera in a particular area than you could having somebody hanging from 200 feet from the ground trying to obtain that same data. Drones are being used for surveys to obtain data in land development, construction, developing new roads and subdivisions, and with oil and gas. We're going to see in just a moment how drones are being used to survey pipelines for the integrity of these pipelines. In addition, drones are being used to monitor deformations and also in experimental science projects for physics purposes. They're being used to make sure that equipment is aligned the way it is supposed to be prior to the commencement of the experimentation. We know that drones are being used for topos, surveying for highways and bridge reconstruction. They are also being used in large-scale sites, surveying designs and also for solar and wind projects, because they can get up there and they can take a look to see that things are working the way they're supposed to and take pictures with very minute detail and emphasis on parts that are working and not working. And they can go in with these camera eyes and be able to expand the visuals, and then that information is sent and transmitted to a person on the other end of it who can use that data to work to make sure that the solutions that the company is using are working the way they are supposed to be. The United States requires certification to fly a UAV for commercial purposes, but the surveyors and engineers that I work with say that it is a very small price to pay for having a complete 3D color model of a build site generated. What they go on to say is that capturing site data is very costly and time-consuming. When they have to send field personnel out, it's the travel time to get there, to get back. It's the time the people that are out there, them having to eat. There's just a variety of issues and concerns. And so the feeling overall is that drones can easily go where it's inefficient or unsafe for field personnel, and it becomes very easy to accurately generate, measure, and manage information once it gets back to the office. Drones will be one element of a larger solution, and drones will be tailored to individual projects, contingent on what the projects are that you're working on and what you are doing and how you need to use them. Using together software program with these drones engineers and land surveyors are able to generate very high-resolution imagery for areas where there has been none. They can produce these surface models with dense sampling and very complete sets of data, things that in the years past would have taken an incredible amount of time and would have been very difficult to do. Drones are being used today for legal land surveying, bathymetric surveying, and also to measure aggregate volumes of different entities. For instance, this is an example of a digital surface model using LiDAR. And the affordable heavy payload drones with their precision LiDAR systems can really very soon cut back on the use of based scanners that are terrestrial in nature. So we see that we're able to generate quite a bit of data, very much in depth here, and at a fraction of the cost that it would be incurred had you have to send individuals out to do this kind of surveying. Also being used for stockpiles. This is an example of a survey that has come back for the Bureau of Land Management, looking at gravel pits and stockpiles of different densities of minerals that were stored in this particular area. One of the more interesting applications for your day-to-day consumers and customers is how archaeologists are using drones. Using heat sensing cameras, heat sensing and sensory cameras in New Mexico, archaeologists found 43 miles away from Chaco Canyon, under the desert earth, 73 homes that had been built probably in the same era as Chaco Canyon. So we're talking over 1,000 years ago, and we wouldn't know that this little village even existed without the use of these high density, the ability of these drones to look beneath the Earth's surface and see that there were structures there. It looked like there was a large spring that was nearby and quite almost in the middle of this 73 home village that was under the Earth's surface. I know in Scotland they've been using them to do work with discovering what happened with the Vikings and where they traveled across Europe. It's just fascinating to be able to uncover pieces of history using this technology. So not just for the past, but for the future, to be able to look at things. Drones can do one of two things. They can take a multitude of photographs and pictures. They can also take live video, and they can do both at the same time, depending on the cameras that you have attached to the drones and how they're working. And what happens is that this information is sent directly, in many cases, to a cloud-based application, and they work again in tandem with software to provide, the scans and the surveys of the work sites. This information, when it's entered into these Autodesk applications, is then used for analysis and planning for the future projects. And so here's an example of some software, and what we know is that together with the drone, the camera, and the pixelating software, the resulting data is absolutely amazing. One of my engineers, a Canadian who works for Macintosh Perry, said that UAVs provide an affordable alternative to field survey personnel, allowing us to complete projects at a lower cost with fewer staff while acquiring data that is more complete over the majority of a site and allowing the on-site staff to focus on specific areas which may require on-the-ground detail acquisition. And this was from the 2016 recent roundtable interview of land surveyors. So we know that these are what this does when you have drones is it provides you with the opportunity to give your customers and clients better service, more in-depth information innovation and at a lesser cost. Of course, we always have the initial cost up front, but it looks like with this software, you're able to make it pay back. Let's continue on talking about how drones are being used in other applications right now. They're being used to deliver vaccines, medical services, and food to remote locations in the developing world. You know, we're all hearing about this terrible, terrible food crisis in Venezuela, and a humanitarian aid, some other nations are actually helping people by delivering food. We know in Haiti, after the horrible storm, some nonprofit groups were delivering medicines and food and water to some of the areas in Haiti using drones. We know that in huge cities where traffic is an issue, that life-saving equipment such as defibrillators when people have had heart attacks can be delivered in 3 minutes or less to places where somebody is having a heart attack. This is a huge application of the use of a drone to be able to deliver that kind of a service. If using drones continues in the way that it is, we will also see hospitals being able to transport organs for critical transplants from one entity to another. If they can get them on there quicker and faster and move them through from hospital A to hospital B, it might save someone's life. We also see drones, the other commercial opportunities for drones to be used. Amazon had talked about being able to deliver their packages to you within 3 hours from any place in the country that you order them from. Wouldn't that be great if you're looking for something to be able to have it delivered? We see drones being used to monitor agriculture, looking at crops, gauging growth, and delivering insecticides. So another use of drones that is a very live application. Facebook and Google both are looking ways to connect the internet to every person on the planet. And so making drones that can fly up above into the solar system and be able to provide internet connectivity will really increase, again, that idea of globalization, that people are connected. So if there's a crisis in one part of the world, we will be able to see live images as we are in many parts of the world, but not every part of the world. So this is one of the missions of both Facebook and Google. Now, I want to go back to the question that I asked earlier. Do you have any concerns about the use of drones? And one was the privacy issues. As the technology evolves, what's to stop drones, the size of a fly, from coming into private corporate meetings, listening into private conversations? It's that feeling of Big Brother watching over you. So as the drone technology continues to evolve, we'll also see in a little bit further in the presentation how there will be technology to offset that as well, so that we can be assured of our privacy. You'll walk into a room and there'll be a scanner to make sure there aren't any drones in the room, so that you can have private conversations, even if it's with your loved one. But it is kind of interesting and somewhat scary when we think about where we're going in the future. Insurance purposes, I guess you could be sued if your drone caused any inflict injury upon someone. You would have some issues related to insurance as well. So that would be something they'll soon have riders on your insurance plan if you have a drone, making sure that it doesn't crash into somebody or cause an accident, pull out an electrical line. There's all kinds of things that could happen as a result as well. So thank you. The next area that I'd like to move towards is nanotechnology. And nanotechnology is a very interesting technology. It is this teeny-weeny ability, and it is touching every arena of our life: information, medicine, energy, textile, and food. And so There's those little things that pop up. Okay, great. And they have been since 2009 when I first became aware of nanotechnology, and it may have been even before that time that it has been around, and science is moving very quickly. Some of my clients at Los Alamos National Laboratory are very involved with nanotechnology, as well as some of the scientists and engineers at Sandia. So we know that this is going to be an important technology in the future. So let's talk about what some of the engineering applications will be. What nanotechnology will do is that it will there will be some sort of a replicator machine that helps to rearrange atoms from supplied chemicals or inexpensive waste materials. So imagine if you, in your home, and when you throw garbage away, if you simply sorted it, which we already do if we're recycling. We have bottles in one bin, and we have paper in another, perhaps, and then aluminum, and then you have your other waste products, that all of those things would go into different systems within your household, and they would be regurgitated to create food, clothing, medicine, and other household items at little to no cost. What nanotechnology has great signs of doing is improving your health care combined with stem cell and genetic engineering. We know this is already happening, whether you want it to be or not. Scientists are finding, and engineers, ways to pull out certain genome that cause disease for people, life-threatening disease, from the, before the baby is even born, as they are getting ready to implant, or however they're doing the science. They can take a look at the mother and the father's DNA. There was an article that came out last week that was interviewing half a dozen, or maybe it was a dozen or more, youngsters between the ages of 18 and 12 who had been created from the DNA of 3 different parents. And the reason for that DNA mixing was to avoid the problematic life-threatening disease that was associated with the mother's DNA. So it's already happening, and of course there are ethical concerns and considerations that many people have around these kinds of technologies, but those seem to be secondary to saving people's lives and creating life that is free from certain diseases. What we have today, right now, is we have wearable fitness technology that monitors our health. Some of us may even be wearing a Fitbit right now. A Fitbit is something that measures how many steps you take. We are looking at prototypes that are being instituted in the form of a tattoo that can sense your vital signs, your respiration rates, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your sugar rates. And so this technology already exists right now, and the question is how we can scale it down so that it can be implanted or injected into the human body to capture this detailed information that is then transmitted via wireless internet to your physician or healthcare provider. And a little beep goes off if you're not functioning at perfect levels. If your blood sugar gets too high, maybe you'll get an internal beep, or something will come up so that you can have a sugary drink or something to help you. But that's what's basically, we have this technology right now. It's just a matter of tweaking it a little further so that it can be connected in a way to really make a difference in people's lives. There's a belt called the welt, and the welt right now is a belt that measures 3 things of your health and fitness. It measures your weight, your waist size. So even after a meal, it is so highly calibrated that it can tell if you've overeaten. It measures how much activity and what your food intake is, and it keeps track of that all day long. Biotech personal nanofactories are said to be in full force between the years 2020 and 2030 that will make our life healthier and easier to live. So that means there'll be a biotech personal nanofactory either down the street or in your own personal house. We know that healthcare providers, with the help of engineers, are now able to direct and build stem cells to regrow worn tissues, bones, muscles, and skin. And by the late 2020s, these nanorobots not only will be put into your body to measure your heart rate, measure your diabetes, measure your breathing problems, but they will be wandering through your body and reprogramming faulty DNA and faulty cells to repair them unbeknownst to you, so that you will be operating in excellent health. Scientists suggest that same-day cancer treatments will be a reality by 2020, which just breaks my heart, because I lost a friend. He was 60 years old, and he got that glioblastoma, the brain cancer, and he died within 17 months of being diagnosed. It really is a walking death sentence when you are diagnosed with that. So what nanotechnology is predicted to do is to eliminate the aging process. And so my question to you is, if possible, would you choose to live beyond 100 years of age? It's an interesting question. Yes, most people say if I'm healthy, yes, if I'm, good health and I can see and read, and why not? And I remember in 2010 hearing Morgan Freeman, the actor, was moderating a program, and he said that in reality that we have the technology right now to live 750 years of age. And when I mentioned this to my two daughters, they said, "Oh, Mom, you're crazy if you think they couldn't fathom living 750 years of age." But my little granddaughter at the time said, "Mimi, if you want to live 750 years, I'll live with you." So I thought that was really cute. I personally would love to, if I could stay healthy. So that's something that I'm going to ask you to think about. It's going to have a huge impact upon our globe. And what will happen with age is that it will become an important indicator of life experience. We'll be the wise old souls, the experts, and we'll be valued for our expertise that we bring to the world. But as of August 2016, we were estimated to be at 7.4 billion people on our planet. So if you think since the beginning of humankind, it took all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of years, like a million years is what they're saying, to get to 1 billion people by 1804. And here we are just 200 years later, and we're at 7.4 billion. Wow. What impact will extended life have combined with global population? What kind of an impact will that have? What kind of ethical concerns do we have? All important questions that engineers and scientists are required to solve. We get into these situations and we need to know, how are we going to deal with this? We have overstressed our resources. Many scientists that I work with say today that we are incredibly stressed on planet Earth. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we haven't taken care of our resources. There's 23 miles, football field miles high of plastic in our ocean just along the coast of Southeast Asia. So we're polluting our oceans. The oceans are warming. We have got climate change. We've got carbon dioxide. We have, we've become incredibly efficient in every aspect of our technological, industrial age. We can do more with less, but we are still destroying much of the planet because of how we're living. So all of you have alluded to this idea that we're going to have to really figure out some different ways to manage the resources in our planet, on our planet. And some social scientists say this is the reason for the outbreaks of things like Zika. I don't know what's going to happen, but we will need to become much more sophisticated in the way we manage population, because what we see in scientific movies is that people with money, if there was another movie that came out just recently where they grew the replicas of people, and they use them for extra spare parts. What's the name of that movie?
The Island.
The Island, yes, one of my favorite movies, really fun. But basically, some very interesting and scary things that we have to look at. But continuing on, talking about nano factories, one of the concepts is that by 2030, you'll have a little nano factory in your own home, just like everyone has a microwave, and it will be indispensable. And that's where you can have your Earl Grey or your martini made up for you every day after work. And it will be just kind of like Star Trek, as they had the 3D printing or the idea of replicating, the food, all of the kinds of things that people need. And it's happening again today. We have dramatic advances in the medical field with 3D printing. Now people can have replacement arms, legs, body parts at a fraction of what it used to cost, and they're fully functional. A very dear friend of mine's son was involved in a car accident when he was 15 years old, and he's been a paraplegic. And by having these 3D printing technology available, he is now able to walk. This is incredible, where he has been in a wheelchair for most of his life. It has given him immense freedom that he had never known before. And so we're seeing unimaginable possibilities in medicine evolving every day as a result of the technologies that are available, including, again, this life expectancy. So if they don't have the nanotechnology inserted that fixes whatever's wrong with you, then we know that right now they can print out a limb, layer by layer, printing out a replacement for you. And we actually know that there are people on our planet. There is an Italian village whereby there are 300 residents, 1/3 of this village, a village of just 1,000 people, that of the 300, they're either 100 or over 100 years old. And what they found about these people, they've been doing research, why are they living so long, is that they have, some of them smoke, some of them drink, but they enjoy a very relaxed lifestyle. They make sure they have their siestas regularly, their nap time. And so stress, it looks like stress might be an important factor in lowering physical health problems and increasing life expectancy. They also discovered that these folks ate a lot of anchovies. They had anchovies in almost everything that they ate. So there might be something to be said for the richness of these fish products that they consumed on a regular basis. So life expectancy moving along, using body parts that you can print out. One of the other things that we'll be looking at is a more humane focus on raising living standards. If there's a new movie out right now. Tom Hanks has the movie out. What is it? In Dante's Inferno? It's the movie that has to do with overpopulation. It's in the theaters right now. But I think that one of the focuses of engineers and scientists is going to be, how are we going to take care of the people that are on the planet right now, and how can we plan for a future that is healthy and happy and free from all of these stressors and threats that we've had that we might have today. Using 3D technology to print out cars, that's one of the things that American designers, scientists, and engineers are really focused on, is printing out very affordable, again, green energy kinds of vehicles. In China and Holland, they're working on creating 3D houses, printing out these houses. And there, if you go on YouTube, you can actually see some video footage of some of the first 3D printed homes that are coming off people's computers. One of the things that scientists are talking about and engineers is the ability to recreate buildings with skin and bone, understanding that they make better building blocks. So using technology, 3D printing, to print these kinds of structures means that they would be able to hypothetically heal themselves. If hit by lightning or a storm, they would be able to be injected just like our bodies to restore themselves. They would be more organic and healing in nature in terms of the way they interact with the people that live inside of them. In England, they were interested in food. A bunch of foodies there created edible hamburgers. I don't know how they tasted. I didn't have time to do the research, but I know that they are creating 3D food that is edible. Hopefully it tastes well. We know NASA is demonstrating its ability, and I had a discussion with an engineer last night who was actually talking about this particular point, that NASA is learning how they can go into space and create whatever they need, whatever tools, food, applications of items that they would need in space using a 3D printer. So that's pretty cool. We know that 3D printer sales, materials, and applications are predicted to reach $16.2 billion by 2018. So we'll probably see these 3D printers by 2020 in everyone's home, so that if you need a light bulb or whatever it is that you're looking, you can print one out. Companies and consumers will be able to manufacture goods domestically. So that means the end of having to transport things from China or Hong Kong or Mexico. If you can have a factory in your home, even better, or down the street that can create whatever you need without outsourcing, without waiting for time. Moving to travel and holographic meetings, we remember from Star Trek, and this was always one of my favorite things, the Energizer, you got into the machine and you transporter, and you got into the transporter and you got to be from point A to point B. But imagine if you didn't even have to be there. Imagine having the holidays with maybe some of your favorite family members, or maybe not your so favorite family members. You could, zoom off if you needed to and do other things. But right now, holograms stimulate real life images of people that can be together in real time at different sites. So it almost feels as if they are together in a room. And a recent survey and study that was reported on by the Santa Fe Institute, a think tank just down the road from my home, indicates that these meetings, these Skype kinds of meetings or holographic meetings, are 97% as effective as if you were sitting there face to face with the person. So it's happening already. There was a launch of a new television program in the UK, and they used a hologram in a store window, and people could text messages to the hologram, and the hologram would break out dancing. It could do the funky chicken. It could do this hip hop. It could also act like a scary monster. Whatever it is that you text message to it, it would receive, and it would act out the behavior. And, it just caused huge numbers of people to stand around, and it created great excitement for the upcoming television program that they were debuting recently. We know that the Prime Minister of India is now meeting with constituents across the nation using 3D technology. India is a very crowded place, difficult to get from point A to point B, very expensive. And so if you can get there using 3D technology, Why not? Compliant actuators are robots at work. They're already happening in our car manufacturing. Many of our industrial applications, we're using robotics to do that grueling, getting part A into part B. And imagine automated systems that clean your house, prepare dinner, do all of those projects that you may not be that interested in doing yourself. How many of you would have a chore that you would like to delegate to a robot? Yeah, everybody. I imagine that everybody has one. Yeah, it would be so nice to have your house cleaned, toilets cleaned, windows washed. Right now we're dealing with leaves. We've got leaves all over our property. You clean up the leaves and 2 minutes later there are more leaves all over the place. So you bet it would be wonderful. And so we just need to live long enough to see them all appear, right? I just want to share with you a couple of very, very quickly, we have just a couple minutes left, but artificial intelligence in the European Court has come up with a 97% correct way to use the law. So some people believe that in the future we will have robots and computers that will tell us, that will be the jury, so that we remove the biases that people have. Is this good? Is it bad? I don't know. I'm just sharing with you. These are technologies that are happening as we speak. There are seasteading floating cities that have been envisioned. As we see climate change, we are going to see less and less land as the sea rises, with the melting of the Arctics happening much more fast than anybody ever predicted. There's a lot of money going into what would these sea-steading floating cities look like. A lot of libertarians love this idea because they like the idea of actually being not under the thumb of any government, being able to do whatever they please, because when you're in the ocean, you're not, it's not contingent on any government. So they like that idea. We're seeing a very near perfect quantum clones that are going to be able to crypto our communication, so that we don't have these blocks. When you send an email, it can get infiltrated and exposed. We've seen a lot of that lately. DNA matching data, dating systems where your DNA is matched up to someone else's, so you could find your perfect mate. That might be something that our younger folks would be interested in, or singles. And then lastly, technologies that recognize voice, gestures, and predictive thought patterns may bring technology into a new frontier. This one's a little scary for me, because I want you to think about this. If we were concerned about terrorists, which we are, and we could predict which people had an opportunity to become a terrorist based on their gestures, their voice, and the big brother watching them, what would that be? Would that be like one of these sci-fi movies where you would be maybe put aside or put on an island or separated from humanity, or would you be rehabilitated? What might happen in those scenarios? Lots of fun stuff. We have a great future. I'm an optimist. My glass is always half full, not half empty. And my last question for you is, what is your biggest ethical concern related to future tech tools? We will be sending you a evaluation along with a few questions. We must ask you a few questions about the content we covered today. Once you've completed that, we'll send you your certificate of completion for your 1-hour PDH. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Speakers Live. We know that you have many, many choices for your ethics training, and we appreciate you choosing us today. Thank you.